Like you said, I'm Kristen Crawford, and I work at Centurylink. And I'm going to go over the agenda here while he's looking at that. I'm first going to go through, there we go. Okay, so you know this information. All right, the agenda. It's going to be meant for people who are new to Puppet or new to config management, or I guess if you wanted to see how somebody else is using it. This was a way to be, not saying you should be doing this, it's just this is how we're doing it. I will be reviewing the environment pre-Puppet, the needs of the customer that got us to change, the post-Puppet environment, our basic setup, how I'm doing site launch automation today, and there'll be room for questions at the end. All right. So, professional intro. I started out as a Webster engineer at AT&T a long time ago, 15 years ago. And I was there for a few years doing basic administration of WebSphere sites, like internal applications. In 2006, I started at Savis, which is, or was, a web hosting and managed services provider. At that time, they had just signed a very large customer who had a lot of WebSphere sites, and they needed to be migrated to our environment. They were very demanding, but that was fine. We could handle it. My main focus was migrating those sites, getting them monitored, and writing automation to install new versions of WebSphere. But as the client site and server count grew, my role changed a bit. I became a technical lead, which included both operations, work on operations, and leadership. But after doing leadership for a bit, it's not that I didn't like it, but I was more interested in a strictly technical role, automation. It's just what I preferred. So that worked out pretty good, because right around that time, the customer that I worked on decided that they needed a whole lot more automation. And so I was happy to do that. Oops. What was that? Oh. In 2011, Centurylink decided they wanted to be part of the cloud hosting providers, and so they bought Savis, and that's how Centurylink came into the picture. And that is where I work today. All right, professional intro, or personal intro. These are my boys. 3 of them, all under 8. Actually, the oldest one just turned 8 on Wednesday, but he understands why mom's not there. Max, Leo, and Sam, we go camping a lot and hiking and biking and all that. We like being outside. And then we have a giant cat named Quasi. They named him, but I thought it was a good name, so it stuck. This is I am based in St. Louis, Missouri, and right outside, about 2 hours below, there's a state park called Elephant Rocks. It's actually really cool, because it's just in the middle of forest, these huge boulders that just pop up out of the ground. I mean, insanely huge. So yeah, we were camping and took that picture of them. All right, so pre-Puppet environment. In our pre-Puppet environment, it consisted of many applications on larger Linux servers. I think, from what I remember, we had like 200 to 300. They were all paired up so that we had HA, and there was both test and a prod environment, and actually sometimes a dev. But it was just a lot of applications sharing. There was very little automation and no config management at all, which is a problem when you are making changes and so many people's hands are on the servers. But there was always that thought that there was no way to automate the environment because everything was so custom, or that it would be more work to automate it than it would be to get any value out of it. We were very wrong. So we follow an ITIL process at Centurylink for incidents and requests. So as an operations team hosting, sorry, I know that just got loud, customer sites, there are always tickets coming in and asking for changes to update config files. Where are you at, mouse? Update config files, add new rules, etc. Those would take time. We had a specific SLA that we had to meet, and it took a bit if you needed to send out just a web server change. You had to log into several servers, take some time. Sometimes people forget there was human error. Maybe a config file wasn't updated the same in every place. It happened. People are people, and we all do it. Sometimes you're troubleshooting an issue, and you take one server down because you want to really just hit one server to isolate the problem, and then you get distracted and leave one up and one down. And at that point, then the customer has to report intermittent issues. Another engineer has to, reverse engineer really what happened and fix it. So it wasn't ideal. And then patching and maintenance sucked. So even with only 200 to 300 servers, you could only do a few in a maintenance window. And always that maintenance window is a Friday night. It's like, a midnight to 5 a.m. Nobody wants to do it. It was dreaded. And you'd have to do several, grouped up. It was dreaded. Okay, so the post-Puppet environment. A little backstory on how we got here. A little over 3 years back, our customer decided they wanted to completely refresh the environment, move to the cloud, and speed up delivery time, as I think everybody wants. So this wouldn't have been quick or easy task. We did have a very bright engineer on our team at the time, Jason Nance, who's well known in the Red Hat community. And I mentioned his name because I want to make sure he gets credit for what he did. He determined the only way this would be possible would to use config management to quickly manage a lot of servers at once. The rest of the middleware engineers would not, we were thinking it wouldn't work. You go ahead and do that. Hit us up when you're done. We just didn't think it was going to work. But again, we were totally wrong. So here's what our new server environment looks like. It's every site gets its own set of test and prod, HA pair of servers. So there's no more sharing. They're smaller servers, virtual machines. They wanted to stick with Apache and PHP, but chose to get rid of WebSphere, instead have Tomcat, and then get rid of Oracle and instead have MySQL. But with that many sites, all having their own servers, our server count rose to like 4,000 very quickly. So that's when we started using Puppet. In this new environment, almost every single task is automated. So there really is no reason to ever log into a server. We now have either Puppet or a deployment tool or mCollective to do any of our tasks that need to be done. It really is a rule on our team. If you need to log in, tell me why. We'll add some updates. We'll write a script. We'll put it in Puppet. We'll put it in our deployment tool. You don't need to get on there to do any of that. So that's pretty nice. This also means quicker time to resolve incidents and requests. So now we can tell Puppet, we can say put our config change in there, a rewrite rule or whatever, and then push that change out. And we know that every node that this goes to is going to have the vhost change and the web server is going to get restarted. Nothing's left undone. And it's also great because we did have problems with people leaving, I like to call it trash, laying around on servers. So it's just a random file here or, here and there. There was a lot of trash. So it cleans that stuff up nice and neat. And I do like to say, before this environment, when I was pregnant, I didn't do nesting at home. I could care less about that. I spent all my time cleaning servers. Like, they had to be cleaned before I left. So now I don't have to worry about that. Puppet does it for me. Patching and maintenance is no longer dreaded. So the way we do this, we have our own custom repos. We have a test and a prod RHEL satellite server. And what we do is a yum exec at specific times. And when we're ready to, and this is in our manifest, when we're ready to do a patch, say like OpenSSL, if there's a vulnerability, we can merge that package into our repo, and then Puppet will do the rest. It's going to update it. If we need to do any reboots or restarts or whatever after the change, we can use mcollective to send out that command to restart the services. So what we would do is put test in for one weekend, put prod in for the next weekend if test is successful. And we're done with 4,000 servers in 2 weekends. Everybody really liked that. And there was added perks. So what I mean by added perks is that, like I said before, nobody was believing that automation could really help. Once they saw this work and saw how awesome it was, everybody wanted to be part of automation. And this is kind of where I came in. This was my part. We said, look at all the stuff we can do with automation. The whole middleware team started thinking, how can I improve process? What can I do with automation? What can I put into our version control and make this environment better? That was new for us, and it's really taken off from there. It's been pretty great. And then just the little things you can do with mcollective and factor, basically inventorying your stuff, or it's really helped us even during outages. We can send an mcollective command out to check that all of our web services are running right at that time or something. So it's nice. Okay, so here is, I'm going to show you an example of how it's really helped, on how a small automated task has a real benefit to the team. When you manage a large amount of servers and you're asked to log into one site's web server, how would you do that in your environment? The answer at our work was log into the site journal, look up the site, find the information, hope that it's correct, and then go SSH into the server. That was a pain. It may not seem like a pain, but if you are on an outage and everything is burning, you don't want to have to be held up by this. So what we have done, or what I've done, is I've written a custom fact called alias that gathers all site-related information on each server. So if you're not familiar with Factor, you guys probably are, but if you're not, it's Puppet's cross-platform system profiling library. It basically discovers information about the system it lives on and then reports them. It comes with predefined tasks, which is pretty awesome right there, but you also have the ability to write custom facts, which can be used in your Puppet manifest, or for other fun automation tasks. So you can see here, I'm on a jump box, and I'm saying, give me all the servers for site 7977. I can see all of them here. I can see which one's a master, a prod master database, prod slave. I can see file servers, memcache, everything. And all I have to do is select what number I want to log into, and I'm done. Or I can easily take an inventory. I use it for that sometimes. If I want to see all the master databases in this data center that are prod, that start with a certain site ID, I can do that. The DBAs really asked for that. They wanted to be able to know which one was a master and which one was a slave without having to know any other information. So that helped. Over here is just me showing a running of Factor and then where the alias is. Oh, I guess I can look over here. So that alias right up at the top, you can see there's the site ID, what environment, a service level that we provide, what's on there. So this is a Tomcat server and the server name. But then I also have a few custom facts pointed to as well. And then the way this is all gathered up is using an inventory script. So simple, 4 lines, just saying go out, grab the alias and the IP address of all these servers, and then format it. And then I basically pull the information that outputs from that script onto the jump box, and then it's easy. And then you get these results. So as soon as Puppet is on a server and it has gotten its alias, it's available. So within minutes, it's easily logged into, even if it never even made it to the site journal yet. Okay, here is a little bit about our basic Puppet setup. And I say basic because it's not a deep dive. All right, every Linux server in our environment gets a Puppet agent. At launch, we join the server to the Puppet master using autosign. In the autosign, we're using a wildcard DNS entry to specify which host to trust. Once a certificate has been added to that new node, our base class is applied. Our base class includes the Puppet module, mcollective module, and then our custom module. The custom module will set our needed rel configs, the services, shell environment, packages, all kinds of fun stuff. But at this point, there is no site-specific information or files, nothing on the server. In this picture, we're basically just saying all default nodes, which is basically almost every single one in our environment, give them the base, and then look for Hiera YAML files that have a site in them, which will lead to our next step. To add a middleware to a server, we're using Hiera, which if you're not familiar with, is a key value lookup tool for configuration data. We have a YAML file where we can define all the site-specific information. So in it, I can say, the environment, the versions, the site ID. This is useful because not all of our sites want 5.4. They might want 5.5, 5.6. They might want 2.4 Apache, different versions of Tomcat or MySQL. I wouldn't want the same thing on every single server. So this makes it so that it can be very specific about what gets installed. All right, the next step. And here's the part where I can't scroll down, but I would love to in my notes, but I won't. We add site-specific configs by placing them in a custom mount point specified in the fileserver.conf. In this site config directory, look over here. In this site config directory, we're going to house all of the specific configs for prod, test, if we have Tomcat, Apache. As you can see in this example, I've got vhost.conf, php ini, and this is how we're going to make it specific to the site. So Puppet knows, using the fileserver.conf, always grab the site information for 886644 from this specific directory. And then, of course, we have to keep it all in version control because we all make mistakes and we need to back out sometimes. We do all of our work on what's called a management server. We call it the Linux management server. We keep our site configs in there, our modules, our Hiera data in there. So we do all of our work here. We push it up to version control, and on the Puppet master, it then gets pulled down. This makes it easy. Say if somebody doesn't like the redirect that they just asked for, we'll just go back to the old version, or they want to, I don't know, go from 5.6 PHP back down to 5.4 or something. We can do that because we're versioned. So that is very important. Oh, I didn't. Okay, so I wanted to show there's my mouse. I wanted to show how this looked with a demo. And I did not trust that there would be internet, or I can't talk and do a live demo. So I recorded it, which I think works good because I think there's some issues right now. Now I hit play, but it's just scrolling. Let's see if it goes. Oh, it did, okay. It's just really easy for me to see this screen versus that one, so I'm gonna look over here. I'm running a provision site script, and all I'm saying is my user ID, because we gotta add it to the version control log. The site ID, I want a test environment, and on that environment, or for that site, I'm gonna have Apache, Tomcat, and MySQL. Done. All that did was create that site config directory that I was talking about. In here you can see the vhost.conf, the different Splunk inputs, all that. Now I have to make the YAML file. And the same goes on this one. I'm just saying Kristen is making it. It's for site 886644. The server name, because we are using Hyra, and it looks for a server name. And then I'm going to say at the last variable what's going to be on it. This is going to be a Tomcat server, so web app. And go. So it's done. The YAML file is created, and the reason we did this is YAML's tricky. You have an extra space or an extra dot or whatever. It doesn't like that. So to make sure it gets done right every single time, we wrote Python script. Here is the YAML file we just created. And that's all it did. It's the test environment we told it, 886644, the versions we want to put in it. All right, now we're on the Puppet Master because the scripts we ran over on the LMS server sent them to version control. All I'm doing on the Puppet Master now is pulling that YAML down and then pulling the site-specific configs down. And we're done with the Puppet Master. The next step we're going to go to is the server itself. There is no Puppet agent on it just yet. I'm going to the op directory just to show you that there is nothing there. Well, there's an XML file and 2 directories, but that's it. So it's a clean server. All I'm going to do is update the agent. I think my voice is going up and down. And done. And then the next command is how we're going to join it to the master. Just say wait for cert. Here is what the Puppet Master URL is, that sort of thing. And then I have tail varlog messages at the end so we can watch as it happens. Now I want to give a little. I want to say I did at first have this as the complete run. I didn't speed it up. This part took 6 minutes, which I think is pretty freaking awesome, but it's not awesome when you're standing up in front of people for 6 minutes but not saying anything. So I did speed it up by 200%, and it should be right around 3 minutes. But still, when I first saw this, you can see here, I'm installing, there's M-collective packages, there's all kinds of custom configs. We're going to get the deployment tool on there. We're going to get Apache, Tomcat, Splunk, udeploy. We're going to set up all kinds of stuff. And it's going to be done in a few minutes. When I saw it, I thought it was magic. I was pretty excited. So that's why I like it so much. This used to take days. Now it just takes minutes. 6, but just minutes. We've got some templates. We're installing the JRE for the deployment tool. I promise this is going to be done in 2 minutes. 2 more minutes. Anybody got a question while it's running though? All right. Oh, there's some of our custom configs getting added for Tomcat. Oh, and I do want to point out, there will be some on there that say dependency failed. The way that the Puppet runs, it really doesn't have an order. So it has tried to do a few things. So here's a few dependency failures right here. it just couldn't do what it needed to do because another step hadn't finished yet. But what's great is at the end, it enables itself, which means it starts back up again, and then that's gonna clear out the dependencies and the failures. So that's what has just happened right here. You can see that Puppet enable there, and it's restarted the catalog run. We're adding in a bit more mcollective configs. I believe the Tomcat custom files are coming up, and then we'll be done. There they are. All right, Tomcat's running. Next up, it's going to try and start the web server. That says failure just because the doc root isn't there yet. I don't know if anybody's worked with Apache a lot, but it wants the doc root there. So that's what that failure is from. But now I'm coming in, okay, that went really fast. I'm coming to the ob directory and showing you, okay, all of the custom configs are there now. Everything in the web folder, the custom configs are there now. If I go back to op, you can see I've got all my installs done. I got Splunk. I've got site monitoring in place. I've highlighted some custom facts here. We use that if we want to say, oh, we want to send a restart to all the test web servers. Well, I can say if the fact web_environment equals test, send the command to reboot the web server. And now I'm showing how this alias that I talked about earlier is created. And that's it. The site's done. I could give this to the developer right now if they wanted to put code on it. Okay, so this next demo is going to show how making a change on a site is even quicker. We did write a script which will run on the LMS server where we do all of our work. It's going to look for any changes on a site. It's going to add them to version control, pull in the change to the Puppet master, and then it's going to use mcollective to run a Puppet apply on all the sites that are defined for that node. So here we go on this one. Oh, that didn't start. Go back. That's my next slide. Okay. On this, there's two because I want you to see when the script runs how it kicks off the catalog run on the server. All I'm doing is getting logged into the server we just updated, and I'm tailing var log messages. Okay, so back over to the LMS server. I can go into the site config directory for 886644, the site we just provisioned. And I just want to make a vhost change. So I want to send all HTTP requests to HTTPS. Pretty easy. On comment, we're good. Now I can run my script. I forgot the variables when I was doing the recording, and I couldn't edit them out, so. What we require is username, yet again, for the log, version control log, site ID, environment, site type, and a ticket number, because all of our requests come in through tickets, and we want to make sure that that ticket ends up in the log as well. All right. It sees, yes, a change has been made to the vhost.conf. I do want to submit it. I enter a bit of notes about what's being done so that those go in the log as well. We really like logging. Comes here, goes over to the Puppet master, and pulls in that change. Now we're coming down with mcollective. It's found one node, and you can see that it's already called the reload on the server itself. We have it set up to where, say if this site had 10 nodes, it's not going to do them all at once. It's going to do one at a time, because that would be bad. But in this case, it was just the one. So it kicked off the job, and it's already done. vhost.conf is updated, and the web server was restarted, web server service. I'm showing here that I wanted to show the timestamp on the web server itself, 1859 UTC. and the date, just so you can show, or see that I wasn't lying. Now I'm gonna come to the web server conf and show the change. And there it is. So you can see why it's not required to get on a server to make a change to any of these configs. So I was excited about that. Okay, so here's how I'm doing site launch automation and how Puppet really helped me do that. Before, we were launching sites for a customer, and what I mean by launching a site is creating the infrastructure for it. So deploying networks, firewall rules, servers, load balancers, getting the site basically just there for the customer to start using. They don't need to know anything except for how do I get to the deployment tool to get my code to it. That's it. So before, that would take over 24 hours and would take a lot of tier 4 engineers, and the customer didn't like that. They asked for us to make it more like a 4-hour deployment. They would be okay with that. So here's what I've done. It's now 4 steps. Gather site information, that's what comes in from the customer. Oh, I want Apache, I want PHP, and I want MySQL, I want it to be HA, all that information, I've got to gather that up and enter it in. Next step, just provision. So I guess to give it a little context, my work, Centurylink, is a cloud hosting provider. Our cloud environment has a very large set of APIs that make it possible to create networks and create firewall rules and accounts all through API calls. So I wrote the automation underneath each one of these steps to go in, create the account, add the user to AD, the user that's going to be adding or using all this, create server groups, networks, firewall rules. All right, so that's step 2. That's done 29 minutes. So that was pretty good. Next step, you have to go in and create an API key and password specific to the account. It takes like 30 seconds. It's a pain. I wish I could have automated that, but there wasn't an API to create an API key. Step 4, run the build and configure. This is where we use the API key and password. So now I can come here, create the server builds. This next step, site config, that's where Puppet comes in. That's where that whole last step that I talked about gets done. Provision the site, create the YAML files, get them all to the Puppet master. And you can see there, that took 25 seconds. So that was pretty awesome. The next step, that was a little bit longer, 59 minutes. But what's included in that server configure is registering the server to our Red Hat satellite server, adding DNS, getting it into our domain controller, installing the Puppet agent, and then adding it to the master. But for the servers, I mean, for 1 hour, that's not bad either. Next up, load balancer. Next up, add our backup service that we provide, add in logging, and add in udeploy, which is our deployment tool. That one took over 2 hours, a little over 2 hours. So what this has done is turned it into a 3-hour job that one tier 2 can do just by clicking some buttons, rather than it being a bunch of tier 4 engineers spending over 24 hours doing the same thing. That wouldn't have been possible, though, without Puppet. To bridge the infrastructure to the site-specific information that's needed to be able to give it to the developer and just say, here you go. Just start using it. All right, so this was a last slide that I added because people at work said I needed to be more, show it more. So here's just the stats, like I was just saying. Before automation, manual steps, 40 to 50 based on tech stack, and I think that's actually generous. It was more. After automation, 4. Time, again, I was generous. It's over 24 hours. Now it's 4 to 5 based on Do I need Tomcat? Do I need Windows? Because Windows takes a lot longer. Engineers required. We're down to just one tier 1 now, or tier 2, sorry, tier 1. Consistency, and what I mean by that is that even though the site launch was a documented process, it can vary between each person that does it. Or, you know, if somebody in US does it, somebody in India may do it different, or Singapore, or even vary even within the same, you know, region. It can be done different. People can miss things. It just happens, you know. After automation, it's consistent because it's done the same with the same code every time in every data center in every work shift. So I was excited about it. I had a whoop whoop. So I don't know if anybody listens to Howard Stern, but I'm a big fan, so whoop whoop. Okay, so that's it. And there is time for questions if anybody has any. I will see what I can do. No?
All right.
All right, well. Oh, sorry, it's hard to see. Or if you just want to give me a high five, I'm here for that too.
No, it should be a quick question. So, just a quick question. So, a lot of the configurations you do in Hyra and stuff like that, have you known a customer or someone that's done it through an API?
That created the Hyra through API?
Well, the definitions in Hyra, your configurations that you're pulling into everything.
No, we haven't done that. Like this, since we're a hosting provider, we don't give them that kind of access to our environment to be able to create the YAML files. So they have to tell us, what do I want on the server? And we can do that for them, we can't. There's no API to give them to do that and no way for them to log into the box to do it themselves. But if they easily want to go from PHP 5.4 to 5.6, they put in a ticket and we can update it in the YAML file. And then I think there's a few custom configs that need to be updated. Push it out, done. So it's pretty quick. You got a question too?
You mentioned mixed environments, Windows and Linux. In the Windows environment, did you have issues with group policies, security groups, and stuff like that, having that configured in your Puppet?
I did not put Puppet on Windows because those Windows guys are so resistant. I'm still trying. Now, my automation did work for Windows because their servers are created with a custom template, which is something we offer in our cloud product. And so that's how they get their custom configs out. But I do want to do it. Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be some issues, but we'll work through it.
Any more questions? Or high fives? Well, all right. I think that is it for now then. Thanks, Kristen.
All right, thank you.